Hello and a Happy New Year from the Isle of Skye. Now the following video you're just about to watch wasn't initially recorded for this channel. It was recorded with the potential to be used in the other channel, Photography Online. But that's not going to happen, and I thought, well, I've got the video footage, I've got the photos, so why not edit that together and share it on this channel? But why am I in my office and not out in the field at the Quiraing, as it says in the title below? Well, when I initially recorded the video, I didn't do my usual intros and outros, and of course I wanted to wish you a Happy New Year. So here I am. And also, I'll be back at the end of the video to discuss the photographs that I captured on my 2 visits to the Quiraing and a fundamental error which I feel I made with the second visit. But before we get to that, here I am out in the field at the Quiraing. Good morning from the Quiraing here on the Isle of Skye. Well, it's mid-December, and as you can see, we're in the middle of winter. There's plenty of snow around me. And that's the main reason why I've come out this morning, to capture a fresh fall of snow which we had last night. Now, I came here 2 days ago, and the snow wasn't quite so fresh, and some of it had also disappeared, especially on the hill of Cleet. I mean, I've got a nice little dusting on the hill of Cleet this morning, which I'll show you in a minute. But where am I standing? What's my viewpoint? You know, there's so many different viewpoints you can stand at here at the Quiraing and get amazing shots. But with the sun rising in a southeasterly direction in the middle of winter, I've actually come to an amazing rock formation here called the Prison. Now, this doesn't normally work most of the year because the sun will be rising almost behind me, especially in the summer. So my subject will be front lit. But in the middle of winter, my subject will be side lit, so the hill of Cleet. And within the prison, you've got these amazing rock structures, and I'm going to use these hopefully to frame the bottom portion of my image. So rather than just sticking a long telephoto lens on and photographing Cleet itself, I'll use this rock formation and the snow that I have in the foreground. So we're about 10 minutes from sunrise. Now there is a gap on the horizon. I'm just hoping it's where the sun is actually going to come up and hit my subject of Cleet. So 10 minutes to go. I better get my tripod set up, get my camera on the tripod, and I'll walk you through my composition. So the sun has risen now, and as you can see, there's a really nice sky to the left of me. Now the temptation may be to turn the camera around and photograph that, but from where I'm standing, you know, there's no subject here. Yes, it's a nice sky, but that's not what I'm here for. Now the sun has risen. It's just coming up above the mountains, or it's going to come up above the mountains, maybe in a couple of minutes or so. So I'm all set up. I've got my composition. Now, aperture-wise, I'm shooting at f8. It's a very sharp aperture for this lens at this focal length, which is probably about 33mm. I've got the 15 to 35mm lens on. ISO 100. Now my exposure time doesn't really matter. It's just dictated by whatever I need to get the correct exposure. You know, at the moment it's about 1/5 of a second, but it doesn't really matter with this shot here. So it's now just waiting for that sun to come up and, fingers crossed, do what I want it to do. So you may be able to see behind me, the light is hitting the Trosnage Ridge at the moment. It's hitting Cleet a little bit, but I want more light on Cleet, so fingers crossed that will happen. And I'm just basically taking shots every couple of minutes, or every time I see a change, as the sun gets higher and higher. And just check my exposure. Yeah, we're all good. We're at 1/6 of a second at the moment. Now I am getting quite a lot of light on my foreground. That's just because the sun's in full view. There's no cloud kind of stopping giving a different direction to the cloud, shall we say. So it's just going to maybe bathe everything in light. But I'm actually getting nice light on the foreground. Normally I'd want less light or no light in this foreground and all of the light on my background. But actually, you know, it's quite nice. It's actually picking up the snow really quite nicely. Just check my exposure again, because the light is getting more intense. Just got to double check my histograms and we're all good. Now because the sun's coming in full view and it's not coming directly at my lens, it's coming maybe about 80 degrees to my lens. I'm going to have to be careful of lens flare. And yeah, well, it's definitely a better shot than I got yesterday morning. And the light was about an hour to an hour and a half after sunrise before I actually got the light. So the sun was a lot further south, and I'm getting first light, so to speak, today, and it's a lot nicer. And it's very warm as well. It's a warm light, so it's really quite nice this morning. Yeah. So like I said, just before I take another shot, just double check my histogram. It's way too bright now. My reds are overexposing. So I'm just being careful with my red channel at the moment. And just double check that. So I always double check the histogram after taking the shot as well. Although you are looking at the JPEG histogram. So just understanding your camera and its capabilities in terms of shadow recovery, highlight recovery. Yeah, I think this could be quite a nice shot this morning. So as the light changes, I will just continue to take more shots. So yeah, as I thought, I am having to shield my lens now from the lens flare. Because as I say, the sun is, the lens hood in these wide angle lenses don't protrude too much because obviously they would cause vignetting. So the light is managing to make its way in front of my lens. So I'm just using my hand in front of the lens to shield it from the lens flare. And I take another shot now. The light's moving across the landscape nicely now. And then just zoom in, just double check, no lens flare, and yeah, we're all good now. Well, the sun's just about to go up into some cloud, and I think that's for me, for this particular viewpoint this morning. If the sun does appear, which I think is highly unlikely this morning, or for some time anyway this morning, there's a big bank of cloud there now. So I probably won't get any more shots, but I'm pretty happy with what I've got here. I'll know better when I get it onto the bigger screen at home. But yeah, I think I've got a shot that is better than the shot that I got a couple of days ago. You know, it probably can be improved on still. So yeah, I'm going to pack up now, head home and see what I did get this morning. So now that you've seen me at the Quiraing, I haven't shared my photos with you yet, and they're up on the screen here. So let's dive into the computer and talk about the 2 photos that I captured during my 2 visits to the Quiraing. Here's the photograph I captured on the first day. Now the composition I think was pretty strong, as in the relationship between the foreground and the background I think worked really nicely. But the 2 downsides are the patchiness of the snow, especially on the hill of Cleet here. You know, there's very little snow and I don't think it was very nice. And then I had to wait about an hour and a half for light, and it just really came in terms of these very faint crepuscular rays. But if we go to day 2, which was only 2 days later after a fresh fall of snow, the conditions in terms of the snow is so much better, but I got my composition wrong. Predominantly in terms of my viewpoint. Now if we look at the 2 photographs side by side, they're the same, pretty much the same focal length. Day 1 was 35mm, day 2 was 34mm, so only 1mm in it. But as you can see, I'm a lot closer to the foreground rocks on day 1 as I am on day 2. Now, when you're walking here, you're on a very narrow path, so I actually had to find a place to set myself up, you know, safely, and luckily there was a flat section to the right of the path, and I thought I was on the same spot on day 2 as I was on day 1, but I obviously wasn't, because I was a lot closer on day 1 compared to day 2. So on that morning, if I'd noticed the composition wasn't, you know, that strong, you know, there's just too much empty space on the bottom left of the frame here. But if I had noticed that at the time and just changed my focal length to maybe the 50mm lens, I could have got something like this. And this is so much stronger. Actually, I actually prefer this to the shot I got on day one in terms of the composition, because the relationship of this rock here and this rock here, in terms of this rock here, where you've got this very subtle reflection, it just frames either side of it. And I just think it's so much stronger. And also, this rock here is pointing to Cleat, and then this rock here is obviously pointing to the Trotternish Ridge. And it's just so much stronger. And there we have the two photographs I captured during my 2 visits to the Quiraing. But also the mistake I feel I made during my second visit, whether that was down to my choice of viewpoint, focal length, or both. Now this is by no means any excuse, but sometimes when we're out there on our own shooting video, that whole process can take over and we make these silly little mistakes. But like I say, it's no excuse. First and foremost, I am a photographer and I should know better. At the time, I should have noticed that there was something not quite right with my composition and rectified that, but I didn't. Now luckily here on the Isle of Skye, we can get more snow up until early April. So hopefully, sooner rather than later, due to the position of the rising sun, I will get that chance to head back to the Quiraing and rectify my mistake. So hopefully you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please consider giving it a thumbs up. And also, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. And if you do, hit the bell notification to be notified when another video is uploaded. And until that time, bye bye.